Seth Davis, CBS Sports college basketball analyst. He joins us every year at this time, senior writer for The Athletic. Good to see you again, Seth. Give me the result last night that surprised you the most.
Well, good morning to you. I can't say I was surprised by any of them, to be honest. Um, I did go 4-0 in my picks last night for the Athletics, so I should just disappear right now, because that will never happen again. Florida Atlantic, I'm a big believer, Dan, that winning is a habit. And they've now won 34 games to 3 losses. And people, I would hope that we've come far enough to understand that it's not because they're in a bad league. Conference USA is actually not a bad league. As mid-major leagues go, it's about as good as there is. And they dominated all season long. As a story, Kansas State is hard to beat. They only had 2 players coming back from a program that had a job opening for a reason. And Jerome Tang came in and brought in a whole bunch of new guys. They were picked to finish last in the Big 12 at the start of the season for a good reason. And they have been great all year. It's not like, oh my God, they got hot late and are on this amazing tournament run. They have been good all season long. And you saw last night, the power of having the 2 best players in a game. Now, of course, game went to overtime. They could have easily lost, obviously, but it's been an amazing story for them. So, and then, UConn, to me, I think UConn and Alabama have been the best 2 teams in the tournament. And after last night, I would probably put UConn 1, Alabama 2. Let's see how the Tide looks tonight. So, yeah, it's just a great, great night of basketball, and the crazy shot by Julian Strawther of Gonzaga to end the night. Really, really unfortunate for UCLA after the amazing season they've had, for them to be down 2 starters at this point in the season. They were gassed the whole way. The fact that they took Gonzaga to the edge like that is an incredible tribute to Mick and those kids. So it's been a fun tournament.
It's almost like we've redefined what a Cinderella is. Now, I talked to Princeton's head coach, and he said we're embracing Cinderella, where Florida Atlantic is not. They're like, no, we belong here. Kansas State, as a 3 seed, has a Cinderella feel to them, which is pretty amazing. I don't know if any of these other schools would be defined as Cinderellas in previous years, and maybe not now.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, I would agree with you. I mean, we could talk about San Diego State, being a Mountain West school. I mean, they're a 5 seed. So if that's, we're kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel for Cinderella there. I mean, I've said many times, Dan, San Diego State is the best mid-major program in the country outside of Gonzaga. They are really, really good every year. And let's not forget, in 2020, when the tournament canceled, they were headed for a 1 or a 2 seed.
Yeah.
So they've been good now for many, many years, being able to replenish their roster, going back to the Kawhi Leonard teams of Steve Fisher, transferring that from Steve Fisher to Brian Dutcher and continuing that success. That doesn't usually happen. If you're in the Sweet 16, I mean, I understand Princeton is a 15 seed and we call them a Cinderella, but I mean, if you didn't know anything about the teams and you watched that Princeton Missouri game, you didn't know anything about them, where they're ranked, where they were seeded, what league they were in, you'd say, oh yeah, Princeton's a better team. I mean, they just dominated them physically. So yeah, I think we're long past the point of thinking along those lines, but it's an incredible story. Ivy League champ is a number 15 seed, and what FDU did to beat Purdue is a 16 beating a 1. That's going to happen again. We now know it's only a matter of time, and probably not a very long time, before a 16 seed reaches the Sweet 16. It's been the trajectory of the sport really since I've been covering it now, which I hate to say is a good 30 years and increasing fast.
Seth Davis, CBS Sports college basketball analyst and senior writer for The Athletic, joining us on the program. It feels like those teams, those schools that have players who stay longer than 1 year, they're the most dangerous. And Kentucky proved that for many, many years. They would have one and done and tons of talent, and they'd go on to make millions and millions of dollars in the NBA, but they didn't have great success deep into the tournament. Are we changing the blueprint for success in college basketball?
Yeah, I think that's another thing that's been happening. I mean, if you look at 2012, the Kentucky champ, that was Anthony Davis, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. 2015 was Duke with Jahlil Okafor, Tyus Jones, Justice Winslow. Those were all freshmen. So those were two freshman leaning teams. Now they did have older players that were there as, they're kind of glue guys and the like, but they were heavily reliant on one and done type talents. That's really been it. After that, it's really teams like, Jay Wright's Villanova's teams and the older North Carolina team and right on down the line. Kansas last year. You got to be older. And now, Dan, we're in a point where college basketball has never been this old because of the extra COVID year
Yeah.
that these players are getting. So and then their ability to transfer without having to sit out has, I think, helped, sort of water find its level where players are going to places where they can play and they can be exposed and they can have the best experience. I mean, people talk about the downsides to that, but I think the upsides really outweigh the downsides of giving everybody the ability to find the place that fits them best. So yeah, I mean, like the Duke Tennessee game last week was a great example. I mean, Duke just looked really young.
Yeah.
Tennessee was older, more physical. And that's why they're still playing. I think a lot of these teams tonight, Texas, one of the oldest teams in the country, and not just being old, Dan, but having continuity from year to year. You can get old in the transfer portal by bringing in a bunch of old players, but if you have old players who have played together for a couple of years, that's really the sweet spot that I think teams are looking for.
Drew Timme has 7 career tournament games with at least 25 points. So tied with Bill Bradley and Oscar Robertson for third most all time. Elvin Hayes and Jerry West tied for first with 8. So he can reach that with the next game. How will college basketball remember Drew Timme?
First of all, that's pretty good company right there.
Yes, yes.
That's not too bad. What is that?
And I
Oscar
think he's got
Robertson, Bill
another
Bradley?
year of eligibility.
He does, and he won't use it. I'm trying to talk him into coming back to comma and NIL money, man. Come on, but he's made pretty clear that he's gone. Yeah, I mean, Drew's going to be remembered for his personality as much as anything. I mean, he just plays the game with great joy, great verve. I'm not a fan of dropping F-bombs on TV, but that is his personality. It's funny. He was kissing Julian Strawther last night. He's like, I'm the biggest Julian Strawther fan because if that shot didn't go in, all we'd be talking about right now were his 2 missed free throws.
Yeah.
It's funny how fate intervenes, but he's been a great player and he's been in a great program. Like we just take this Gonzaga thing for granted. It's really I would challenge anybody to find me another example anywhere in sports, anywhere of this happening where this little private Jesuit school in Spokane, Washington, playing in the West Coast Conference is this dominant for this long. I mean, we're now going on 20 plus years since they made that initial run to the Elite Eight with Mark Few and everybody. And it's not just Mark. I mean, it's a total buy-in of the university, the alumni base, the donor base, the community. And then people say, well, their league and this and that. And well, now you look at their record in the NCAA tournament and you can count on one hand and only need a couple of fingers of programs that are able to match that. And then people say, oh, they haven't won a championship. Are you serious? Like, first of all, they're one possession away and they've played in 2 championship games. They're one possession away against North Carolina. We are talking about Gonzaga University. So for Drew Timme and that story for Gonzaga and Mark Few, to be in the Elite Eight is fantastic. I will tell you with great confidence the road ends here. They match up very poorly against UConn. Everybody matches up poorly against UConn with that two-headed monster at center. I love Drew Timme. He's an incredible scorer. He is a pretty mediocre defender, and he's going to have he and the guys are going to have their hands full with Sonogo and Donovan Clingan on tomorrow.
Your thoughts on Rick Pitino at St. John's?
When a coach, it used to be to this conversation. It used to be when a coach got a new job, I would sort of caution the fans to be patient, say because the first thing he's going to do is look at high school juniors. So it's another year until his first class gets on campus. Then it takes a couple of years to develop, and you need a couple of good classes. So we're looking at a 3 to 5 year process. Now with that transfer portal, it's instantaneous. It's microwave. And what I can tell St. John's fans, who I know are very excited, is Rick Pitino's 70 years old. He's a young 70, and he's a 70-year-old with a chip on his shoulder and something to prove. He's been battered and beaten down and humiliated and dragged through the mud. And it got to the point where he didn't think he would ever have any opportunity to coach again. And he wanted it so badly. He coached in Greece for a couple of years, went to Iona. And so he's going into this with just incredible enthusiasm and edge. And now he can use that transfer portal. I mean, if you're a college basketball player and you got the chance to play for Rick Pitino at Madison Square Garden, are you kidding me? So he's going to instantly upgrade that roster, and he's going to coach the heck out of them. And the Garden is I mean, the Knicks are playing well, and St. John's is going to be back. I don't know if I'm through the looking glass here, what's going on, or if it's a dream. I don't want to wake up because it's going to be exciting.
Good to talk to you again, Seth. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of the tournament.
Love you, Dan.
Love you too, Seth. Seth Davis, CBS Sports college basketball analyst, senior writer for The Athletic.